Welcome back to Lock in Buffalo. Joining us on the show today is Tim Walton of Venu on Chippewa and one of the business owners that is at the center of the conversation about the future of downtown Buffalo's entertainment district. We're going to be talking about the relationships between business owners, police, as well as the security in the district, parking lot parties, 18 and up debate, and much, much more today on Lock in Buffalo. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Tim, for joining us on the show.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no, I appreciated you you reaching out. I know we've talked on the platform quite a bit about what's going on in Buffalo's downtown entertainment district.
Yep.
There's a lot of conversations that are associated with that debate, whether it's 18 and up or 21 and up, to the police presence in the district, and as well as these wild parking lot parties that are going out. A lot of people have invested a lot of time and a lot of money into the businesses in that district, and obviously there's some challenges based on the activity that's going on down there. So I wanted to open the floor up to you to kind of maybe educate myself and educate the viewers on your take on what's actually happening on Chippewa.
Yeah, of course. So I actually manage Venu and Bottoms Up. So the two, we're actually the two largest parcels combined. We are about 60% of the square footage on the north side of Chippewa, which is across from the school. So it's the two biggest parcels basically. Venu is a 2-story event center. We do ticketed events. Probably about 50 events a year we do there. And then Bottoms Up is a like party bar style. It's been there 25 years. We're celebrating this year.
Yeah.
Venu's celebrating 10 years. So we've been there a long time. We're not a fly-by-night,
No.
bar or anything like that. Been there a long time.
I've many a good memory in both of those locations.
A lot of people, fishbowls, a lot of people have a lot of fishbowl memories. So.
Yeah.
So right now there's a lot going on with the 18 plus controversy.
Yeah.
It came up starting in June, actually. We got a call that there was some conversation going on about our 18 plus college night at Bottoms Up.
Mm-hmm.
This is an event that we've been doing every Thursday for about 15 years, where we bring in it's 18 plus night essentially.
Yeah.
We've been applying for what's called a commingling permit. Commingling is where you commingle 18 and 21-year-olds in a bar setting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people, when they think that, you kind of have this stereotypical of, you see college kids sitting at a bar with a Bud Light in their hand. That's not what it is at all.
Right.
It's very much like if you're just dancing, like, take your high school dance and take your, but make it for college kids, essentially.
Yeah.
You're dancing to the top songs. You got a dance floor, we got a platform stage, and we got a patio. People just dancing, having fun with their friends, instead of, hanging out in a frat basement. It's basically a safe space for college kids to come out and have some fun.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that for 15 years, and we
Right.
got a heads up saying, all of a sudden, hey, we've had you guys applying for the wrong permits. This came from the city. So we said, okay. They didn't want us applying. We've been applying every single week for these permits, one by one.
Yeah.
And they reached out and said, you're not supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to have a blanket permit. We said, okay, we've been doing this for 15 years just because, this is how you guys have told us to do it. They've approved it for 15 years. All of a sudden, they reached out and said, this doesn't make sense. So we said, okay, we met with the councilman, we met with the city attorneys, and they said, we want you to apply differently now for a special use permit, and then you'll have it basically grandfathered in. We said, okay, no big deal. So we went before the planning board. The planning board approved it unanimously. They said, nope, no big deal, and they put it on to the Common Council. That's where we are now. We went and spoke before the Common Council, and we were hoping to have it approved. They tabled it till after their break. They haven't voted on it yet, but it's still in lingo right now. And as that happened, the whole thing started coming up of, we want to close off Chippewa. We don't want 18 on Chippewa.
Yeah.
So we're not sure if this permit that we've been doing for 15 years is even going to get approved now because of this, whole discussion of 18 plus.
Right.
So it's kind of a weird thing because we've never had an issue on Thursdays. There's never been, this all started because an 18-year-old shot a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And that happened, ironically, on a night where every establishment opened was 21 plus. So it was a kid in a parking lot 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with, the kid wasn't coming into the bars. These are guys who aren't patronizing the businesses. They're hanging out in the parking lots. They pull up, they park in the lots, they drink in the lots, they hang out on the street. A lot of the times they don't even walk past the bars. If they do, maybe they're flipping off a bouncer, maybe they're, they have no intention. They don't even get in line. They don't try to come in. It's not because of an event. I mean, these people will be down there regardless of whether it's Kids Bop, the opera. They don't care.
Right.
These are people who have been down there so long. They've been getting away with being able to just go down there, drink on the street, smoke on the street because they've just been allowed to do it.
In your opinion, what is their draw to the district?
I mean, it's an entertainment district,
Yeah.
so I mean, you have the same issues with. It seems to alternate. Going a couple years, you'll see like Allen Street has some issues. Then you have Chippewa sometimes has an issue, and it just alternates. But it's this whole narrative right now that it's this mess that's been going on is kind of been blown out of proportion on this whole thing because it happens every year to an extent.
Yeah.
But this isn't a Thursday, Friday, Saturday thing. It happens basically just Saturdays from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Yeah.
And it's once it gets nice, and then there's no issues the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And like I said, it has nothing to do with the events because these things have happened. And ironically, it started July 4th this year.
Yeah.
It was the worst, most violent week, or violent, or whatever you call it, where people are fighting, issues, arrests on Chippewa.
Yeah.
Then July 11th. And then last weekend, or 2 weeks ago, ironically, Venu was 18 plus on Friday. Saturday was 21 plus.
Mm-hmm.
There were 10 arrests on Saturday, and the street was a mess again.
Yeah.
And the same thing, July 11th was when the kid got shot. July 4th was a mess. And these are all 21 plus nights.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these kids are down there, the kid that was 18, but what was he down there for? You can't say he's down there for an event because there was nothing going on that night for him.
Right.
And the other kid was a 17-year-old. He wasn't down there for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at a lot of the people that are down there Chippewa has a strict dress code at 99% of the places.
Mm-hmm.
You can't walk in with a ski mask on. You can't walk in with sweatpants on.
Right.
The people walking around in the street with ski masks and sweatpants on are not coming into bars.
So let's take that topic for a second. So would you be in favor of kind of shutting down the street, having the street blocked off, and then permitting people that are 18 and up to be present on the street, not just loitering around?
We're open to working on different things.
Mm-hmm.
I know they've tried it in Rochester. They ended up, first they started as 21, then they ended up going back and allowing 18 in the street.
Mm-hmm.
We've discussed that. We've actually put that out there and said we're open to that with people that are ticketed coming in. They're coming into Venu because Venu's a ticketed event. So you'd be allowed in if you had a ticket, something like that. The big thing that comes up is, this was discussed in, I believe, 2018 or 19, 2022, 24. It's been brought up every time we've been told by city legal and the police, everybody, that's not constitutional. It's not legal. So I don't know how they would even be able to do that. I mean, it's a public street. It's not a private block area. It's not, so I don't even know how that would be able to happen. I mean, they closed it off for Bills games and they've had to leave portions of it open for people to walk through.
Yeah.
And the other thing is once you close it off, you still have the issues. And just because somebody 18 shot somebody 17, there's still other issues within that I mean, there's been 5 or 6 shootings of 21 and up people. So, but those have been hushed because it doesn't fit the narrative that's been out there. I believe there was a couple days. I mean, it was like May 10th, there was a shooting. May 20th, there was a shooting and a stabbing. It's just these different things that are all associated with 21 plus events.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be they didn't know how to shoot and they missed the people they shot. So it didn't make the headlines as much as if they had actually hit somebody.
So on the violence, I mean, I could, my gosh, I've spent just as much, if not probably more time than the average Buffalonian in that district over the years. I held out a little longer than most. I waited until I was about 38 to have a kid. So I spent a lot of time
that'll be me.
in the area. I just don't ever remember that level of violence even being discussed in that district. I always felt super safe going down there. I was always frequenting with my wife and all of my wife's girlfriends. It wasn't like I was traveling with like a group of guys where that enabled me to feel a high level of security.
Yep.
I just don't remember that being the case.
So
like,
I'll be honest.
changed?
Like I mean, I'm down there. I don't think the narrative fits the actual safety concern because I walk down there. My fiance walks down there. There's a couple. I would not walk through a parking lot at 2:30 in the morning down there by the back dark parking lots.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that when the parking lot parties are happening. Parking lot garages are lit.
When did those start?
So last year they blocked them off, and it solved a lot of problems. When they're blocked off,
They
it's
just blocked
awesome.
off the parking lots?
The private parking lots across from Shays, like
Yeah.
they're just there's so many entrances to those parking lots.
Yeah.
And we've talked to some of those guys and they've put their input into, and it's there's like, I don't know, 10 entrances.
Those guys being the parking lot operators?
Yeah, we've met with the bar owners, the parking lot operators,
Yeah.
and they've said the same thing. They're like, there's so many ways into those parking lots. Even a public street, Asbury Alley, goes right through there. So there's only so many ways to block them off with them being operational without just, So when they close them down, nobody can go in there and just hang out. So what was happening was people were just driving in, parking, and not paying. It's a free spot, and they're literally tailgating like a Bills game.
Yeah.
Except it's not your Bills fans. These are people who are just down there causing issues.
Yeah.
And, you get them everywhere, but like, you can't have the Bills security on Chippewa every single weekend. It just doesn't make sense. So that was what was starting to happen. Once they closed off those parking lots, it kind of went back to a better environment. You still have the parking garages down there, which are well lit. They have their own security. So that kind of gives a nice parking. I park in there or on the side of the streets, and I feel safe all the time. But it was the parking lots that just started becoming, an abundance of parties.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I just don't ever recall those being a thing.
Yep, that was never, and it was the same type of thing. I remember a couple of years ago, they were doing that at Furman Boulevard, out by, they're doing it now out on Furman Boulevard, but there was more outside of Erie Basin Marina. They were parking in Erie Basin for a couple of years. And that was the type of thing. So it's just the groups move around where they want to party. It happens sometimes. Right now it's down on Chippewa. But on the actual strip of Chippewa, I don't remember there ever being a shooting on Chippewa. And
somebody's got to hire one of these promoters. Like, how are they getting that communication out there so effectively to get these people to congregate so effectively?
Yeah. And that's why it's like, these people they're coming down there and they're all in one area. And it's just like the way with social media, they've got to be posting or just texting, hey, I'm down here. And or there's certain events that
somebody's got to infiltrate these groups to be able to monitor where and when these things are going to hit.
Yep. And I think some of it they've just been able to do it for so long. They just know for example, the July 11th there was a 5,000 person party at an establishment. I'm not going to name them because it's a great establishment, but they had a huge party. 5,000 people came down to Chippewa. Also, Taste of Buffalo ended on Sunday. Or Saturday. At the end of the day, they have people that at the end of the night are always coming out. So there's 2,000 people down there. You had a big block party on Chippewa. You have thousands of people down on Chippewa coming from these different events that are just coming down there to, hey, we'll hang out down there. We'll see if anything's going on. And these people were just hanging out, and it got to be an abundance of people, and there didn't seem to really be a plan for excessive amount of people. And that's obviously there ended up being a shooting that night.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, it's an inevitability, right? That when the weather's hot, people are jam-packed on top of each other. Somebody's going to bump into somebody's girlfriend or whatever the case is, and they're going to start getting aggressive with each other. I mean, that's just an inevitability, right? You can't really try to regulate around that or institute policy to just totally shut that off. But there has to be a way to start trying to, curb this coordinated effort to get all of these unpaying people that aren't patronizing any of the businesses, that are essentially inhibiting all of the business owners' ability to operate. And then the unfortunate thing that seems to be happening is now stakeholders, whether they're in favor of 18 and up or in 21 and up, are kind of having to go at it against each other. When everybody's, just out there trying to do the same thing, which is, create this district that's vibrant and at the heart of the nightlife of the city of Buffalo. And, it's sad to see that happening because, like I said, I have, countless unbelievable memories that were created in that district. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that they started doing 4 or 5 weeks ago, whenever it was, when they increased the police presence. And unfortunately, it was a reactive thing more than a proactive thing originally. But they started, for the first time, I mean, I've been down there, Venue's been open 10 years. I've been down there since the start of that and before that. And one of the things they started doing was they gave the police ticket books. As far as I remember, the police have never had ticket books down there to be able to issue tickets for anything. You'd have maybe one driving around unit, or one guy go around be able to issue parking tickets. But I believe it was the first week they issued 78 open container tickets or public disturbance tickets. These were people who were able to walk down there before, fist pump a cop and with a bottle of alcohol in their hand and be, hey, get out of here with this, and the cops can't do anything about it. Now they do it. They say, hey, give me your license, you're getting a ticket. And if they don't, they're getting arrested right there for, not providing the license. They're getting arrested for that. If in the past you used to be able to walk up to a bouncer if you were denied from a bar, or, if you just want to cause problems, you could tell the bouncer to F off.
Yeah.
30 minutes later, come back and do it again. The cops will tell you to leave. You could threaten them, whatever. Keep coming back every 30 minutes. Now it was happening. Somebody did it. It was like 10 o'clock it happened the first week. Somebody got arrested immediately, taken in handcuffs and taken away. You could tell the guy was shocked. And that was somebody who I recognized who had been down there before a couple times, causing issues. He was immediately taken away. And the guy was like, wait, what is happening right now?
This isn't supposed to happen.
Yeah. So that was something that in itself we've been asking for years.
Yeah.
And the response comes from, the city, the police saying, hey, why do we do this? And it goes both ways, because it's New York State, we get it. Like, you issue somebody an open container ticket.
Good luck.
It's a piece of toilet paper, essentially. Like, if they don't want, if they're not a law-abiding citizen, they're not gonna go down to City Hall and say thanks and pay this, and they're gonna throw it out but eventually these things will come back to catch them, or it's gonna let them know, hey, I'm not having fun, or it's gonna catch up to them eventually.
Yeah.
If you're letting them party and have their cake, it's take that away a little bit.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, I think what has happened across the state, I mean, this isn't an issue that's isolated to the city of Buffalo. Yep. These are things that Rochester deals with and Syracuse deals with. And I think the common denominator is the fact that law enforcement has been essentially perceived as being stripped of any real authority. Yep. Now, with what you're saying, that's a major step in the right direction.
For sure.
There's some semblance of accountability. And if people feel that there's no accountability, they're issued an appearance ticket that they don't give a shit about. They know that the cops can't do anything to them. And in fact, there's almost a trend now of a lot of these aggravators in the downtown scene actually going out to purposefully agitate law enforcement to get social media content and to create a controversy, and most likely at the end of the day try to create a lawsuit for themselves. Yeah. So the cops are in a really difficult situation. They're being looked at to kind of maintain the peace down there, but they're fighting with two hands tied behind their backs.
Yeah, I mean, you could sit there and you got these people that want to talk. Like, we have a great conversation. People are going to watch us. If I slapped you right now, more people would be interested.
No doubt.
But
you want to do it?
And that's
we'll get a click out of it.
And that's what they go down there for. You see people with every time something happens, their phones are out. They want to do that, and it's like that's what they're looking for. And it kind of that's the environment we're in, and it ruins a lot of what happened. And it gets twisted, and then a lot of the cops their hands become more tied, because it's like. Do you want to start an argument with somebody over an alcohol container when who knows what's going to blow up on them? But it's like,
I mean, that's a rabbit hole that we can really dive down as far as the younger clientele coming up. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going against the nightlife scene.
Yep.
Right? You have the fact that consumption of alcohol is way down. People are looking towards alternatives, illicit substances to replace consumption of alcohol, which is, I mean, that's a very debatable trend. But the numbers don't lie. I mean, younger people are drinking significantly less.
Yep. Beer sales are almost irrelevant at this point. You got your what is there? You got your seltzers, you got your super light stuff like that. Those are your main things, but it's shifting out of that too. I mean, people are coming out, and that's where Venu, I think. People have this misconception of what Venu is too. Venu is an event center. I mean, we have events and stuff where people. That's where it's such an entertainment district. Mm-hmm. We have people coming out to dance and for concerts and for DJs and stuff like that, which is why I feel like Venu is such an important spot, because it's such a big parcel and people aren't drinking. So this is something where people can come out and enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
Because without people, without the alcohol, you don't have much of a you don't have many other options.
Well, right. And then obviously, but that puts you in a difficult debate position, right? Because with that being the case, the other stakeholders in the district are going to say, okay, well, you're bringing out all of these 18 and up clientele. They're not going to be able to come into my establishment and spend money at the bar. Yep. All they're doing is creating issues. Yep. Whether they're tailgating an event, that's another unquantifiable fact, right? You don't know how many people are actually doing that. Are
So
the
I
people?
actually I do have a little rebuttal to that actually.
Okay.
So we actually, so that was one of the things that came up with the parking lots. They said, oh, these kids are hanging out in the parking lots or whatever. So I actually took a picture. I'll send it to you if you want. If you want to input it into this or whatever.
Sure.
But, on Thursdays we had a packed bar for our Thursday nights. I have pictures of the parking lots. There's one car in the parking lots. The kids are coming down. They Uber. They get dropped off in front.
Yeah.
We actually have a limo bus that drives to UB. It picks them. It's a limo company that we hire.
Yeah.
Picks them up, brings them down, drops them in front, and takes them back right. So these kids aren't hanging out in the corners. They're literally going to their Ubers and back. Like, these aren't kids who are driving in the parking lots. I mean, you're talking UB college kids. A lot of them are like, we have medical students from, China, Italy, stuff like that. They don't even have cars here. So they're literally coming down to go inside and then leave. And that's why, so that was one of the things we put together to show, hey, these aren't the people hanging out in the parking lots. And, I think the city knows that because they've gone on record multiple times saying it's not the patrons in the bars.
Yeah.
So I think that's where everybody's on the same page. And that's kind of why we were like, why are you coming at the bars?
Yeah.
When, we know it's not our patrons.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's an interesting data point, obviously. I mean, if you are able to really delineate where these issues are coming from, then the focus really should be, okay, well, how do we stop them? Obviously, one of the steps that have been taken, again, to your point, on a reactionary basis, is just shutting down the parking lots.
Yep.
Which is, for people, parking from people in the suburbs, right? And I grew up as a patron of the bars on Chippewa, coming from the suburbs until I was in my early 20s. Always, the thing you're hearing about is lack of parking,
for sure,
right? So that's not a great solution.
And it's been the last probably month. It's actually been worse because the parking, it's been blocked off at Tupper all the way down to Huron, from Delaware to Pearl Street. So you can't even get within the closest parking lot's the Hyatt parking lot. So you can't even get even close to the area because it's been blocked off so far. So like, we've had limo companies that have reached out, or people on limo buses, and said, hey, we're trying to come down. It's sprinkling. We have to get dropped off 2 blocks away. Yeah. And that's obviously, not really working. That's why it's kind of been hurting business with that, because it just doesn't, people can't get close to the businesses. Yeah. I mean, you got girls in high heels that are supposed to walk 2 blocks to your bar in the rain. It's kind of taking a toll on everybody.
I would imagine. I mean, that's really throwing the baby out with the bathwater and negatively impacting all of the businesses. Yep. So what is your take on a solution?
So I think, there's some things that we've asked for that, in today's society can't happen. They used to have a paddy wagon down there where, you get arrested.
I remember that.
It's basically a big motorhome RV where people would sit in there.
Mobile drunk tank.
Exactly. You get arrested at 10 o'clock. You're in there until 4, and maybe they'll let you go, or else you're going to wait, see the judge on Monday. But unfortunately in New York, that doesn't happen anymore. But, I think the big thing is just allowing the police to continue to police. You don't need SWAT. You don't need drones. You don't need all these things down there. But taking what's down there and letting them police, continuing the tickets, continuing the to be able to enforce. You get in a fight, know that you punch somebody, you're going to go to jail. You're not going to say, hey, go along, you go that way, you go this way. Kind of the zero tolerance on, the BS stuff that people have gotten away with for years. I think that's a huge thing that helps. And like I said, it just has to start earlier. Beef up the enforcement in May instead of waiting till you have an issue in July.
Sure.
So I think that's one of the bigger things that just keeps it, proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah. I mean, and right now, I mean, just to go down the police issue for a moment. I mean, the cost is exorbitant right now to have all of this overtime being spent in the district to police the district, on top of the fact that it's incredibly difficult for these officers to really enforce any authority. I mean, my God, I can remember the days, not only the paddy wagon, but the billy clubs being wielded around, and people got in line real quick.
Yep. You see every cop walking around with a.
Not to say that those should come back, but yeah, man, I remember a couple of buddies of mine got out of line every once in a while. I got a crack across the back, and they sobered up pretty quick and shut their mouths and kept it moving.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, I would agree. I think that's the more logical thing, is to try to institute some semblance of order early in the season.
Yep.
So you're not allowing these things to not only create the reaction from a law enforcement side and from a city oversight side, but then all the detrimental impacts that all that negative public relations and media coverage has on the district.
For sure.
I mean, obviously, you're going to have a ton of people that are going to write off going to do the district over the course of the summer because they're going to think it's mayhem.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things that hurts Chippewa right now is the narrative. Like, because this happened, like, there's people that want to run with this. 18's the problem, and then you have an issue with 21, you don't hear about it, and then it kind of just gets pushed under the rug. But people come back out the next week. As soon as it's 18, some people want to run with this narrative, and it keeps getting put in the news cycle, and you just keep hearing about this. Like, it's not any more dangerous now as it was, 6 months ago when somebody 21 shot somebody. But like, you don't hear about those things. And to make it clear, like, you can walk. I feel totally safe down there because it's on the strip. Is no issues at all. It's the people. If you're not partaking in these parking lot parties or hanging out in the alleyways, you're not in a danger down there. You're in a good spot. But those are the issues, and you're just hearing about them more now because an 18-year-old shot a 17-year-old.
So is it solely on the parking lot owners to provide private security in their lots?
So I guess there's some kind of ordinance or law or something where they have to. I know I've heard from the police and stuff that there's something going on with that where they're going to start enforcing that. It's a very hard situation, but at the same time, it's they have big. They do have big lots.
Yeah.
But what we were kind of explained is it's kind of like if somebody breaks into your property, you have to be there to you have to be there to report it. But at the same time, if you leave your front door open with nothing there, it's on you as well. So you have to kind of secure it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then if somebody breaks in, you can report it, but you can't just leave your front and back door wide open and then, have a problem with people going in it.
Right. So. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough situation because, ultimately, like, how far out could you really put those blockades, right?
Exactly.
So if the policing is happening now solely on the street on Chippewa, and the squad cars are parked, the lights are consistently on, there's SWAT walking around. Some people may feel safer there. Some people may look at that and be like, "This is a war zone."
Yeah.
This isn't really a place where I feel like I could unwind it.
Yeah. And I actually, I'll be honest, like the SWAT down there, I think they're great. The police down there are great. It's kind of like,
sure.
I get more of the vibe with them down there of like, the Bills game. You see the guys in the street, they're friendly, they say what's up, that type of thing. It's just a very expensive thing to do.
Sure.
And that's where, I think they said it's like $39,000 a weekend or something like that.
Yeah.
But the other thing with that too is like, the narrative has come out that the problem, hey, we want to ban 18 on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and all that. Thursday, like I said, there has not been a documented any issue. I don't even think there's been an arrest on Thursday in 10 years, And Fridays, like, bars are closing right now. Like, I think the last couple of weeks, half the bars down there have closed at midnight.
Yeah.
There's nobody down there. There's more police down there in the street than there are patrons.
Well, yeah, that's unfortunately a result of everything that's been going on.
Exactly. So it's like, there's no to go down there and say, hey, we have an issue with this. Like, you don't need all these, beef up the police on Saturdays. Fridays and Thursdays aren't an issue. And ironically, like, they're trying to say they don't want our Thursday 18 plus at Bottoms, which hasn't been an issue. Like I said, they don't even have an increased police detail on Thursdays because there's nothing going on.
Why? So what's with where does this lack of coordination come from? I mean, you would think between the business owners, between City Hall, and between the BPD, there would be a really pretty easy solution if everybody came together and just said, okay, here's the weekly schedule of events. This is when we need coverage. This is when we maybe don't need as much coverage. This is when we need coverage pushed out a little bit further. This is when we need it on the street. Yep.
And that's what we're trying. We met with one of the councilmen and just kind of said, hey, that's what we need to do is do something where, we know that there's, maybe not Darien Lake, but there's a concert at Key Bank Center that's ending. There's a concert at Riverworks ending. There's a Outer Harbor concert ending.
Yeah.
There's that's extra 10,000 people. Maybe we need a few more officers that night. But Friday, last weekend school's transitioning, college kids are leaving, nobody's coming here yet.
Yeah.
It's going to be a slow weekend. We might not need as many people. And, we've
Right.
been down there. We know it better than anybody.
Of
What
course.
events are going on. And that's where we said, hey, maybe it's once a month we meet and say, this is what's coming up type,
Yeah.
so people, they can adjust based on that. There's sometimes down there where, like I said, there's more cops down there than there are patrons in the street. I mean, bars are, Bottoms Up, sometimes we'll be open till 4 a.m. when we're busy on a Friday, and there's other times where it's like 12:30 and we're like, what's going on down here?
Yeah.
So it's not always the same, but we can usually project what's going to happen on those weekends, and that's where if we worked hand in hand, we'd be able to say, hey, let's adjust and save some money on the street.
Have you ventured down the path of, I've been in other markets, in Tennessee and in other states where the district has like an open container rule. You're able to go from one bar to another with a open container, and the district is kind of like one free for all, like an adult playground.
I've never gone to them. I mean, I know there's some close towns that do it, like Batavia, East Aurora.
Yeah.
I mean, they're open container, but they're not big party towns or whatever.
Right.
I know like St. Pete does like First Fridays and stuff like that.
Yep.
I've only been there once, and I honestly was not in the mindset to remember it, but but it was I remember it being fun or whatever, but I haven't been to something like that, but we're open to whatever makes sense.
Yeah.
But whatever plan it needs to be. I mean, venues invested millions of dollars into the street, and we've been closed the last 2 weekends, and the street is like a ghost town down there, and you can't take away your 60% of the biggest parcels and expect an entertainment district. We're in the middle of your entertainment district and have it be dead. That happens. Last time when Lux closed, it was Lux until 2013-14, I believe it was. When that closed, it was almost going to be like a grocery store. It was going to be like a kids fun zone, like almost like a Chuck E. Cheese. Like, you're going to end up destroying your entertainment your entertainment district. Yeah. Essentially, if you don't, there's not a lot of people that can run a successful event center in your downtown district.
No, it's a lot of overhead. It's a lot of capital.
Yep.
It's a lot of promotion. I mean, there's a lot that you need to carry on your back to make that as a successful venture. And obviously, all this negative press doesn't help your cause.
Yep.
So that's quite honestly as a business owner and somebody that's had to face a lot of external factor challenges, that's why I kind of tuned into the issue. In addition to it being such a, your entertainment district's kind of one of the lifebloods of the city.
Exactly.
It brings a lot of people from outside of the city into the city when they a lot of the times wouldn't otherwise have much exposure to the city. Growing up, like I said, I mean, it was most of the time where I was in the city was at night and out at the bars on Chippewa. And it made me fall in love with the city of Buffalo. And, now I own multiple homes in the city. I live in the city full time. So it's a shame to see that go in a negative direction. But I got to believe with a coordinated effort, and hopefully the BPD gets a contract in place where they could start recruiting effectively and getting more officers on staff, so they could properly police, not only properly have a presence down there, because they are forcing overtime to mandate that officers are down there working that district, but they're exhausted. They're being forced into overtime. It's a huge nut for the taxpayers to absorb.
Yep. And I think one of the things is, like, when you get a lot of the new guys down there, on the forced overtime, you start seeing that, it's the guys who aren't familiar with the district or something like that. It would help to definitely have some of the guys being able to, have more experience and be able to have experienced guys down there that know what they're, getting involved in and stuff. But like I said, the guys that are down there are absolutely great, but you can tell sometimes it's the same guys over and over again, and they're telling you, hey, we're down here on extra overtime. We're on overtime again. We're here, and they're here every single weekend. Yeah. But you can tell it's like they get exhausted once in a while.
Well, yeah. I mean, not only getting exhausted, I'm sure they're, their spouses aren't happy about it. They're having to be out, on the weekend nights. Yep. Their mornings are shot. They're not spending time with their families. And they're in a hostile environment on top of it, on top of being stressed out, and exhausted. That's a recipe for disaster. Yeah. And then you layer in the fact that you have this element of the people down there that are actively trying to provoke them. I mean, it's a really, really difficult situation. And I believe that's at the heart of the issue.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, the good thing, like for us, is we see, like, we're able to work with these guys and we start to, communicate. We know a lot of them now at this point. So we can communicate with them and say, hey, this guy's back down here. He's going to be an issue. And they start to work with us too. And, the good thing, we have a lot of an understanding. We've heard from a lot of them too. They're on the same page. They've told us we're not the issue, and we start to work with them. And, it's become a coordinated thing where, we're on the same page with them.
Yeah.
And it just comes down to now getting everybody else to see, like, hey, this is the issue of, and getting everybody kind of on the same page.
Sure. So. Well, it's my hope that this conversation becomes productive. There's not a ton of, combative debates between the stakeholders down there. I think everybody ultimately wants the best thing for the district.
Yep. We actually had, one of the things with like our Thursdays, we had 23 businesses actually signed in support of our Thursdays, because there's literally been no issues at all.
Yeah.
We asked for, for support. We had all the business, all the bars on the street signed for it. And this is something that we're just, like I said, we're hoping it's up for vote when the Common Council comes back, and all those business owners sent letters in support of it. Everybody on the street, every business that's open during those hours, I think all but like one. So it was pretty much overwhelming support on that. So we're hoping that, they come back and say, hey, this makes sense.
Yeah.
And Buffalo is one of the, I believe it's like 46 out of 50 states all have 18 plus.
Yeah.
Even Miami, one of the biggest ones in the country for partying, space in Miami is 18 plus.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of, they're allowed to do 18 plus. So every other city can make it happen. There's no reason why Buffalo can't make it happen, especially when it's your anchor of Chippewa.
Yeah. Look, I mean, obviously we're a college town. I think if you don't have outlets for people that are under 21, there's a lot of spillover issues that come from that. And it makes it difficult for the colleges to attract students.
So that's actually one of the things on my presentation to the Common Council that I brought up was, so we have the UB basketball team, UB football team. These guys come out and they bring their recruits every year in the spring, in the fall, or whenever the recruiting time is. I'm not 100% sure, but these people bring out their recruits to Bottoms Up. They say, hey, look what we've got. These kids want to come here. If there's nothing for them to do, they're going to either go look at Ohio State, Pittsburgh. They're going to look at all these other places that have places for college kids to go. And, the other thing is back in, like, I believe it was 2015, when they didn't have, there was like a time when they didn't have anything. There was an overwhelming response in the university district where people were complaining over there because kids were partying on the rooftops.
Of course.
There was, they'd have a strike force to break up house parties back then just because it was such an issue.
Yeah.
And this is like, college kids aren't going to sit in their house and read books. They're going to party. So if it's not in a safe space, safe event space, safe bar, whatever it is, they're going to be in the basements. And we've talked to some parents who are like, I'd rather have my daughter, who's a college freshman, in a spot where they have security, they have police on the street, being safe, than in a frat basement where nobody's going to call if something happens.
Yeah.
And that's you're going to shift something if.
No, I mean, I lived it. I went to LaSalle in Northeast Philly. I was, I ran, the big party house, and it was the only outlet for students there, unfortunately. We took full advantage of that fact, but that's not a good outlet.
Yeah.
I've seen firsthand, when you don't have security and you're having an unsanctioned event, and you're packing literally hundreds of people into a dungeon of a basement. Yep. Yes. Watch what happens when a fight breaks out and there's one exit.
Yep.
Things go south really, really fast. And, so I wholeheartedly agree with that. There needs to be safe outlets for young people in this community. With that said, those safe outlets most definitely can't be an unsanctioned party in a parking lot where there's a high level of coordinated effort to get people piling into a parking lot at one specific time and overwhelming a parking lot operator. I mean, because if that type of stuff's happening, how do you stop that? How does law enforcement stop that when there's 300 people in a parking lot and it's a literal war zone when a fight breaks out?
My understanding was so that they didn't have security, and they shut the police parked in front of all the entrances last couple of weeks to even prevent people from going in there.
Yeah.
Just because they're like, we can't patrol those parking lots.
Right.
And that's, which also comes to the negative of you lose half your parking in your entertainment district.
Right.
So it's like, there's a catch-22 with that of like, what do you do?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And like, say you're a middle-aged patron that hasn't been downtown for a while, but you're looking to have, a boys' weekend or something of that nature, and you take a little spin down to Chippewa and you see this stuff going on, and you're like, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna go to Elmwood or somewhere else.
Yep.
This is not the scene I want to be in. I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate. But it seems like at the end of the day, there's got to be some solutions to it. And I think, with a lot of communication, coordination between the stakeholders and the city and the police department, ultimately, I'm hopeful and confident there's going to be some type of solution that comes to pass. So with that being said, Tim, I like to play a game with all of our guests here on Lock in Buffalo. We call this the Wheel of Buffalo. So I'm going to invite you to take a spin of the Wheel of Buffalo here and provide us with a unprepped answer to the topic you land on. So future bet, that's a very apropos topic to land on. So give us your bet for the future of the city of Buffalo.
I think, ironically, I'm going to go off of actually a conversation that we actually had one conversation with the mayor when he was on Chippewa, and he came down and he said that he wanted to have, he actually said he wanted to have the street where it would be every bar is open, open container in the street, all ages and stuff like that. So I think that the mayor actually has a plan to, I think he's going to come around and look at everything and just see that, an event center is key. Having different things for college kids is key. And I think they're going to come around and, work with us and see that, your biggest parcel on the street is, something that you got to have. And I think it's going to, end up playing out hopefully. So that's my, I'm going to look at the positives there. So,
well, happy to hear you say that, Tim. And I know there's a lot of challenges that you're facing and everybody in that district, the business owners down there and the police are all facing. So it's good to see that there's focus and that there's an effort to turn the corner and make this a vibrant area for everybody in this community to enjoy. Tim, thank you very much for joining us on Lock in Buffalo. I know there's a lot of challenges ahead, but I'm hopeful that these conversations are going in the right direction. And I'd also welcome you as this issue develops out further to come in and join me again here on Lock in Buffalo. And thank you all for tuning in. Like us, follow us on all of your social media platforms, and continue to lock in on Buffalo. Tim, thanks very much, man.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.